process. Tell us why you say that.
I've been an attorney now for 15 years. I've been involved in many cases, both civil and criminal, and I've never seen the government overreaching in the way they have in this case. And in particular, two piglets who, as Paul said, would have ended up in the dumpster 100%. And the jury concluded the same when they looked at the evidence that we were able to present at trial, who are, even by the state's own account, at most worth $42.28, 20 cents each, triggered a multi-state piglet hunt with over 8 FBI agents involved. And not only were all these agents going across state lines to try and track down these piglets who have been rescued from a factory farm, they actually raided an animal rescue in Colorado in an effort to try and locate these piglets. And when they found them, mutilated one of the piglets without anesthetic, without proper veterinary care, and left her bleeding and with a bloody wound on her ear from a scissor that had basically chopped off an inch-long piece of her ear. And, I think, to me, this is really about intimidation. They wanted to say, you're going to have very powerful people coming after you. If you support these people who are investigating factory farms, we're going to try and hurt you too, because the animal rescue involved had no involvement with the investigation. They had no idea where the piglets came from. They were trying to just give 2 baby animals who were suffering from very serious disease and injuries some care.
This is big business, but which retailers does Smithfield supply to?
Yeah, one of the most disturbing things about this case is that the CEOs of both Costco and Smithfield were involved, and we received kind of documents from discovery in our case indicating that FBI agents had been contacted by both the CEO of Costco, Kurt Jelinek, and the CEO of Smithfield, Ken Sullivan, and that they were involved in decision-making to bring this case. And Costco claims, I think because they know that consumers want this, that they give freedom to animals, including the freedom to engage in natural behavior. I would dare anyone to look at a gestation crate and another pig trapped in that cage and say that is freedom to engage in any sort of natural behavior.
Is Smithfield being an outlier here, or is this actually still industry practice?
I would say that the industry practices are fairly standard across the board, whether you're looking at some quote-unquote product from Whole Foods or any other store. Every time we go on these factory farms, we see about the same thing. What is the outlier here is Smithfield's power over our legal system and over the government and these kind of resources.
Look, Wayne, you're a lawyer. You defended yourself, which is really rather unusual. But I got to ask you, why did you take this risk, right? You could lose your license to practice. Why do this?
Yeah, they have come after my license. They've tried to disbar me. It's failed so far because the state bar court has been reasonably fair. To me, it's just about the fact that we have privilege and we have to do something good with it. My parents came to this country with $80 in their pocket and nothing to their name. And it's because of the opportunities they had given to them by people, for example, in the American military. They were able to survive and give me the life that they had dreamed of. And I think when you have some degree of privilege and you have resources, it's beholden on us, those of us who have those sorts of resources, to try and help those who don't. And to me, that includes animals. There's very few beings on this earth who are suffering more than a piglet or a mother pig trapped in a cage at a factory farm. I think when people see these things, they want them to stop, but there's a lot of money at stake. And so those of us who have both the legal acumen, the resources, the support networks to try and take some of these risks, should try to do so.
The practice of open rescue, I know you do have a lot of supporters. There's some who criticize the practice, of course, and say, look, what you're doing is still illegal. We could probably do a whole nother show on that, which we won't get into, but I want to know, how are Lily and Lizzie doing right now? Where are they?
They're doing great. I'm happy to have my freedom today, and I know that Wayne is too, but we're most happy that Lily and Lizzie have been living their best lives on a nice sanctuary and getting all the sunshine and mud and love and hugs and snacks they could want. And we want that for everybody, human or non-human.
And we're going to end it with this question, and that is, what do you want consumers to know about the meat we eat? How do we make choices that align with our conscience?
I think most people don't want to hurt animals. Most people can't even tolerate seeing it, which is why so many people avert their eyes. And I just challenge consumers and citizens of the United States to look for yourself and ask yourself, are these conditions consistent with your values? And I think overwhelmingly when people do see these things, they say they're not consistent with my values. I don't want to be part of this. And I think that's the danger that Smithfield Foods is facing. people don't like what they see.
Wayne Shung and Paul Picklesheimer from the Bay Area, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you.
Coming up next, a new era for KGO Radio, which ushered in a new format today. We'll talk to longtime broadcaster Pat Thurston next on Getting Answers. It's a brand new day for KGO Radio, 810 on your AM dial. Today, the owner Cumulus officially launched its new format, sports betting, ending a long era of being the leader of news talk, a format that made it the #1 radio station in the market for 30 years.
There were Japanese Americans, Chinese Americans, we were on the program, and I think that was a game changer in terms of getting people to think outside the box and realize, hey, we're part of the community as well.
Time KGO talk show host Pat Thurston interviewing ABC 7 News reporter David Louie about his retirement recently. Pat joins us live now to look back, look forward, and talk about the impact that KGO Talk Radio had on Bay Area listeners. Pat, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Kristen. Thank you so much for having me. I miss broadcasting.
Well,
my last day was Wednesday, and I'm already missing it. It's terrible.
Well, you know, I've always wanted to have you on the show, but of course, until now, you've been on air at this time, right? So it was kind of impossible.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so I'm really thrilled we get to do this. I still fondly remember being on your show years ago, and, you know, for years, you had this great conversation that you had with viewers and listeners, I should say, every single day. Look, it's a tough time for all of us. The format change announcement last Thursday, it came so suddenly. Did you have any more notice than we did?
Not really. We received a notice that there was going to be a meeting, that everybody, it was a mandatory meeting, all programming staff, and then they divided it into the stations in the market. Mm-hmm. So ours was the first one, which probably should have been a clue. And then, you know, when the time came, and everybody was talking about it because it was very mysterious. But a lot of us felt like, no, this is just some dumb meeting they're having. They're just going to talk with us about the budgets. They're probably going to cut back even more than they already have. And so when we went in there, we weren't thinking that this was the death knell. We did think there might be some personnel changes, except everybody seemed to show up. And then we were joined by our market manager, Larry, who's wonderful, and Lee Hammer, our program director, who's also wonderful. Mm-hmm. And they looked like their dogs had died. So we knew that it was something that was not good, that we were not going to be happy with. But we were still stunned. I mean, gobsmacked is that's the only word for it. We were just gobsmacked. Very few people spoke in the meeting because we were just trying to, pick our jaws up off the floor and figure out what the heck was going on with KGO. And, what a loss. It's not just the loss of everybody who was on the air this time. It's the loss of a really great radio station. It is the loss of a major community asset, because there's no other radio in the San Francisco Bay Area that does what we do, where we include the listeners, where the listeners participate, where we want to hear what they have to say, where we focus on local issues, when we can, when there are good local issues that really are worthy of discussion, but we also bring them discussion about some of the national things that are going on, some of the international things that are going on. And the variety of people who join in on that conversation is phenomenal. I think the Bay Area has lost something huge with the loss of KGO.
I think we all feel it. And, the way you talked about engaging the viewers, right? People can call in, they're folded into the conversation. That was kind of like social media before social media, Pat. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah, it actually was. And better than social media in part because each person who was participating had all of the listeners' full attention as if they were a guest on the show, because they kind of were for the time that they were there. So it was an immediate involvement in the discussion that you didn't have to type anything out. You came on the air, you talked, and then you went back and forth, you engaged. And I just think it's a wonderful format. I think it's a format that communities are desperately in need of. But unfortunately,
Well, I think listeners agreed, because I think ever since the format was born in the 1970s, right? KGO Radio was the leader for at least over 30 years in terms of...
It was over
right?
30 years. And they had a vision. Mickey Luckoff, who was in charge during much of that, they had a vision. And the vision really was that it was a community asset, that it had standards, that this is what we were going to do and this is what we were not going to do. And the community responded. But you think about KGO Radio in its heyday. When I started at KGO, I walked in the doors of KGO. It was my dream come true in radio. I walked in, and it was a buzz with activity. The newsroom was just moving constantly. Everything in the newsroom was absolutely fantastic. There were talk show hosts in the bullpen working with their producers, booking guests, planning what they were going to do that day. There were salespeople running all over the place. There was activity, promotions were there. There was publicity going on. It was just such an active, amazing thing to be a part of. So what happened, they spent a ton of money in order to achieve that number one position over 30 years. And gradually they kept thinking that they could just cut back, and we would be able to maintain the same performance. They changed the format on us, which was ridiculous. That was 11 years ago. They changed the format and made us an all news station. KCBS already held that spot in radio.
Right.
And we were the talk radio station in the market. So it left a void and it didn't fill a void. So that was miserable. And then they changed the format a couple of other times, and they weren't sure what they wanted to do. They didn't seem to know what to do. And at that time, they were trying to put money in. When they finally took us back to what made us what we were, a real news talk station, they stopped putting money in. They stopped investing. So we had fewer live shows that were on the air. We were only on for a certain amount of time during the day, and then they had syndicated programming, and then on the weekends it went to infomercials. We used to be 24/7, and it was all responsive to the Bay Area. So, eventually the ratings were not great, although we were building listenership. We had some great listeners. And so they just decided to cut us loose. I guess they figured that Prop 27 is going to pass, and that this, online betting, sports betting, that this is.
That's what I want to ask you about, right? It's called 810 The Spread now, and it is all about sports betting. And I think they even play some gambling-related music. But here's a snippet from this afternoon.
It's a foot race, but the speed of Woolen, will he get there? No! Touchdown! A 60-yard scamper for Taysom Hill.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM with Nick Costos and Ken Barkley on the BetQL network.
You have some thoughts here? I mean, I think a lot of us are wondering, is there that much to support sports betting?
I don't think there is. I think they're taking a huge gamble. And the gamble is on Prop 27, because that'll open the doors to online betting, and then it'll be promoted, you know. And there's a lot of money that's in this format right now. There are MGM is behind it. I don't know the names of those companies that do sports betting and online betting, but they're involved in this. So is there a market for it? I don't think that the Bay Area really needs another sports talk program. KNBR fills that niche pretty well. But this sports betting thing is something that they're really gambling on. And they're gambling again on Prop 26 and 27 passing. And it seems like a bad bet to me, because the support for those propositions is very, very low. Well, I don't think they're going to pass.
Pat, before we let you go, we want to ask, on behalf of your listeners who love you so, where to find you now? What's your next chapter?
I am so sorry that I didn't turn off my phone, because people are calling me. Maybe it's a job offer. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'm not going away. So I'll tell you what, Kristen, I'll call you first. You'll be the first to know where I end up.
And Pat, sounds like you're still taking calls. That's just what you do.
I'm so sorry about that. That's totally my fault.
No.
I would scold any guest who did that on my show.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm not going to be scolding you. In fact, it's a pleasure to have you on. Pat, good luck. You are amazing. And we look forward to that next act whenever you tell us what that is.
Kristen, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, folks, we'll take a short break and be right back. Today is World Mental Health Day. It's an opportunity for us to embrace our sense of community and normalize discussions about mental health. Celebrities are using their platforms to lead the conversation. This tweet today from tennis superstar Venus Williams.
Tennis, but it's an important day for me. It's World Mental Health Day, which means it is time to empower everyone to take care of their mental health, free from stigma.
But how do we begin to erase the stigma? New York City-based psychotherapist and author Terry Cole is answering that question with her book, Boundary Boss. Terry is joining us live now to talk about that and ways to improve our mental health. And we'll be keeping up the 988 National Crisis Hotline number up at the bottom of your screen throughout this interview. Terry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Do you welcome an official day to mark and focus on mental health?
Yes, indeed, I do. And I wish that it was more than, I mean, it's really kind of a week long. I wish it was even longer, but it's a step in the right direction.
Because everybody talks about how great, I should say, the need is right now, right? Does data confirm what we all feel, which is a lot of people are not doing so great right now?
Yeah, I mean, the World Health Organization has put out a study saying that the pandemic itself triggered about a 25% increase in the prevalence of anxiety and depression worldwide. So we're not just talking about US and North America, that's literally all over the world. So yes, indeed, what you're saying is accurate.
All right, so if we need to talk about it, we have to remove the stigma, which is what Venus Williams referred to there. What typical stigmas surround mental health, and how do we begin to change that?
Well, we start with the public stigma. This involves like negative or basically discriminatory attitudes that others have about mental illness or mental wellness challenges, we call it. Then you have the self-stigma. What did you learn about it? Your own internalized negative attitudes, including internalized shame, right? It feels shameful. People with mental illness or mental wellness struggles have a lot of shame because there really is still this public stigma. And then, of course, we have institutionalized stigmas, which is more systemic, that has to do with the government and organizations that are intentionally or unintentionally really marginalizing folks with mental wellness challenges.
Now, your book talks about the importance of setting boundaries as part of good mental health. How do we go about doing that?
Well, let's think of boundaries as your own personal rules of engagement, basically letting other people know what's okay with you and what's not okay with you, which means that you really have to know your own preferences, desires, limits, and deal breakers, and you have to have the ability to communicate them. Because if we don't do that, if we don't have those skills, visualize it like a house without a door, like no fence and no door, meaning anyone or anything can come in or out, but your boundaries really protect your own integrity and dignity, and they do that for your relationships as well.
And how do you communicate those boundaries that you've set for yourself to other people?
Lovingly. You do it in a neutral tone, right? We don't have to get all aggressive. There's a lot of myths around boundaries that if you're a boundary boss, you're like a bully, which isn't accurate. It's really about making a simple request about what your preference is. It's letting someone know what a limit is for you. Your friend wants you to help them move all day on Saturday, and you can help them between 2 and 4. I would love to help you. I'm available between 2 and 4, which is lovingly setting a limit, which is a boundary, as opposed to resentfully helping your friend move all day and holding it against them.
In the 20 seconds we have left, I guess I would like to ask you, if you see someone, a loved one who is struggling, how do you open up that conversation in a way that doesn't make them, shrink away or feel like they're being threatened?
Part of it is validating their emotions. Like, be there for them, just show up, check in on people. And if they're telling you what they're going through, you can simply say, hey, I'm sorry. You're going through this. I don't know exactly what you feel like, but I'm here and I love you. It seems like it's hard, but I'm here to talk. Just show up in a loving, non-judgmental way. All
right, psychotherapist Terry Cole. The book's name is Boundary Boss. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You can get your live newscast, breaking news, weather, and more with our ABC7 Bay Area streaming TV app. It's available on Apple TV, Google TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Search ABC7 Bay Area and download it now. Thanks for joining us for Getting Answers. We'll be here every weekday at 3 on air and on live stream answering your questions. Have a great day.